Today on Lydia's Books, I want to talk about some of the things I'm reading for spooky season, aka October. I'm starting out this month with The Witch of Willow Sound. This is a book that I received last month from ECW, and I'm very excited to get to this. Now, I'd meant to read it, of course, in September, but all my reading plans got shoved backward because I ended up picking up from the library. A hold came through on the audiobook for Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig, and I'd never read a Chuck Wendig. I really wanted to read Staircase in the Woods, and it was way more brilliant and more for me than I even expected. I wanted like a woodsy story, and it starts out with a lot of that, and there's some of that in the middle. And yeah, it's very different. If you liked We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver, you will really like the Chuck Wendig book because, yeah, Staircase in the Woods was amazing. But The Witch of Willow Sound, I'm really looking forward to. It's a Canadian author, and it is based out in the East Coast. So yeah, sort of Rottage core things to get me set up for October before we get into the real October country. Madeline is missing. Ordered to find her, Madeline's estranged niece, Fade, must return to the lonely forest of Willow Sound, Nova Scotia. There, Fade discovers her aunt's once cozy cottage empty and rotting. The ominous smell of something burnt hangs in the air, not unlike this season. We used to have a wood fireplace, but it's been replaced with electric, which, you know, I like a lot better because it's so much safer and less stinky, but it's nice to smell the wood smoke from my neighbors. You'll see behind me this little stack of October reads, and this is what I've picked out to read for spooky season, and I think there's a lot of really good suggestions there. So if you have some of these books on your shelf or you've not read any of these, they're perfect October reads in my books. I mean, no bookish pun intended in my books. But before I get to that, really quickly, some amazing reads picked up for me from my husband when he visited the United States. One of the biggest used bookstores or like used markets is Second and Charles in the East Coast, at least, and I love it. I miss going there, and I always send him with a little list. I haven't had a copy of Misery for a very long time, since one of the first paperbacks came out, and I haven't read it in a long time, and I want to watch this film for Splatter Pictures Dead Air coming up in the cold months, so I'll want to read it beforehand. And Firestarter. I've never actually read Firestarter. I started reading it when I was very young. This exact same copy, the Signet edition, and it's just as yellowed as it's like I picked it right back up where I left it. And yeah, very excited to get to this. Now, this is not a film tie-in necessarily, but this was printed after the first film came out. I've not watched the subsequent film either, so yeah, if you're a big Firestarter fan, let me know. You don't stumble upon that as must-read Stephen King very often, like you do things like Misery, Pet Sematary, and It. And Coma by Robin Cook. My mom read a lot of Robin Cook. We had a lot of Robin Cook in the house. A lot of people don't count him as horror, but his stuff was chilling and terrifying. So yeah, Robin Cook, it's horror to me. It's not techno thriller or medical thriller as much as it is horror. So there's a few other Robin Cook books I want to add to my shelf. Robin Cook books, not cookbooks, but books by Robin Cook. And Coma is a perfect place to start. So I was very pleased to have him bring this home to me. But chilling as this is, this might be winter reading. We have some October books on the shelf. I'll start with some real contenders and maybe what I had hinted at before, Ray Bradbury, October Country. I might not read all of this. There's some stories that I used to read over and over in the library at my high school on lunch break when I didn't want to really spend time with other people. I'd rather spend that time with Ray Bradbury or in the 808 section. But I am going to read some Ray Bradbury. And of course, there's another Ray Bradbury on the list, The Halloween Tree. This, though, has some very cool, October Country. How could you go wrong? If you've not read any October Country or The Halloween Tree, it's of course a little bit more childish. So if you want some sci-fi and weird fiction fare from Ray Bradbury that's fitting for this season, you can't go wrong with October Country. The stories that stand out, The Jar, I wanted to reread that for quite some time. The Lake, Jack in the Box, which is something I've also wanted to reread for quite some time, and Uncle Enar, I think, is one of the ones. There's other stories in here, so I'm just going to read around willy-nilly and see what strikes my fancy. I have a little standalone Ray Bradbury Halloween tree. I've only read this a couple times, twice at least. Once recently, I think 3 years ago, I read this for Halloween, and I wanted to revisit it since I didn't read it last year and I meant to, so it's on the list for this year for sure. On Halloween night, 8 trick-or-treaters gather at the haunted house at the edge of town, ready for adventure. But when something, with a capital something, whisks their friend Pip away, only one man can help the boys find him. Join the sinister carapace clavicle mound shroud as he takes them on an unforgettable journey through space and time, deep into the mysteries of the spookiest of all night. Can the boys save Pip before it's too late? And I'm going to watch Something Wicked This Way Comes over the holiday season because it has come to streaming recently. I do have a DVD version of it somewhere. I swear I do. So I'm going to watch that in celebration of it finally coming to streaming. So if you've never watched Something Wicked This Way Comes, it's now on Disney Plus, I think. It might not bring you back to Disney Plus, but I mean, it's a great film. So hunt it down. Go to your local library and see if you can't borrow a copy there. And a book that has become synonymous with this season, Norman Partridge's Dark Harvest. I was new to this a couple years ago. When the film came out, we covered it for Dead Air Podcast as well. And I'm going to maybe rewatch that this year. My husband has created a really cool list of a whole bunch of films, like the 31 for 31, but only horror films that take place on Halloween. So this sort of thing probably fits. I'll have to see if it's not Halloween October adjacent or just a harvest story, Dark Harvest. But it is like very spectacular. I wouldn't say that it's like a children's fantasy story because it does have some like almost adult themes. The book is a lot more sinister and a lot darker and a lot more poetic than the film. So yeah, it takes place in 1963. It's a whole bunch of boys that belong to a town that has a sinister past. And there is an annual sort of celebration that takes place that involves all of the boys in town of a certain age starving themselves for candy, and when they're unleashed, much like werewolves in the night, to go hunting down candy, there's one person that has the most. In fact, his guts are filled with them, and they hunt him down. It's crazy, actually. But yeah, Dark Harvest. That's a must-read this season for me. Now we're getting into some oddball territory and more short stories. Like there are some novellas here, aside from the novel, of course, of Witch of Willow Sound, which is a whole book. I'll read that first and then pick away at some of these. The Horned God. This is Arthur Machen's Weird Tales of the Great God Pan, with a whole bunch of other stories in between as well. Yeah, there's some stories in here that I really, really want to get to. Aside from The Great God Pan, which is one I'll be reading this season, it's The Haunted Forest by Edith Hurley that I'm going to be singling out when I read that this year, this October. And like I said, much with October Country, I'm going to just read around and see what strikes my fancy as I'm reading. Two sort of oddballs here that aren't specifically Halloween or Weird Tales or old. I mean, we've got Blood Sugar by Daniel Kraus. I've read this before and I love this book and I want to read it every single year for Halloween. So I think I'll tear through it. It's a hard case crime edition, but it doesn't, it's weirder, I think, than most crime. And there's not as much of a hard case to solve. It's almost like the threat of a hard crime case that's looming throughout this book that makes it so very scary. I mean, there are some young boys that have befriended a very strange individual in their neighborhood, and they're very much not quite homeless or street involved, but they're street adjacent kids. And this guy is definitely strange. He has some mental health issues for certain, and he is going to try to poison candy. And the way that he like inculcates these young impressionable kids that are city kids, and they have, you know, certain street smarts about them, but not that radar to figure out what adults around them are safe or not. And I think the adults around them think that they're okay with this guy because he's older, and they are definitely not okay. And Really like the strangeness and the tension that is built up in this book. And of course the cover. Every time I talk about it or anyone does, it's the cover that we love so much, right? It's everything that's good and cheery about Halloween and witches. Incidentally, I was going to read The Witch by Shirley Jackson, and I just might. It's a very, very short story. It would just go along really cutely with that. To round off all of the weird tales and short stories that I'm going to be reading through October, this is a reread as well. The collected supernatural and weird fiction of Bessie Kiffin Taylor, Lady Bessie Kiffin Taylor that is, from Out of the Silence. It includes 3 novelettes, Outside the House, Room Number 10, and The Twins, and 4 short stories of the strange and unusual. I myself am strange and unusual, so I really love this. I stumbled upon this in Merrickville one year, which is somewhere we're going to go visit. It's the perfect time of year to visit the most witchy village in all of Ontario, as far as I'm concerned. This is a strange little volume, a collection of short stories and novellas that were written around before the 1920s, and the author died shortly after publication. There's only one other novella that I think is in the Dublin Library, and you have to go under lock and key and read the physical copy there. It's not, it's in the reference section or the old books section. So yeah, I absolutely love this. If you can find, there's probably copies on archive.org or at your local library, or you can do an intra-library loan to try and get a copy of this in your hands if you've not read any Bessie Kiffin Taylor. And I love the cover. I love everything about this, that I stumbled upon it. It felt like a sign from the horned gods themselves. So that is it, a fine stack of Halloween reading, if I do say so myself. Have you read Blood Sugar, or are you a big Ray Bradbury fan as well? Have you read Bessie Kiffin Taylor? If you have, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be back with more Halloweeny goodness. We're going to be doing some Halloweeny events, so I'll be taking some pictures like I like to every year of our trips to Thay, Pumpkinferno, or Black Squirrel Books. Who knows where we'll end up. I've already got quite a few photos of Halloweeny things already this month. But yeah, let me know what you're doing, what you're reading this October. Thank you so much for watching, and have an ooky, spooky day.